Welcome to the Holistic Kid Show. My name is Zane.
My name is Maz.
And my name is Qasim.
We're the Holistic Kids here to educate us kids from the inside out.
A study revealed that 74%, that is about three of four teens, don't feel confident about their financial education.
Teens learn about everything but money in school.
I love money.
That needs to change. That is why we have the perfect guest today with us, Mr. Mike Brown,
who is going to teach us everything us teens need to know about money in 30 minutes. No pressure, we're kidding. But seriously, we have brought the best to you to help us kids out with our money. Mike Brown is an investor, wealth coach, and founder of Unbreakable Wealth, a coaching program that aims to help entrepreneurs break through key challenges to hit their next levels of business and financial success. As a former fighter jet pilot for the U.S. Navy, Mike Brown has a remarkable history of leadership and determination. After his military career, he channeled his skills into the business world, founding a company that he successfully exited with an 8-figure valuation.
That is amazing.
Amazing.
So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It really is our pleasure.
Our pleasure.
How did you go from being in the Navy to know a wealth coach and investor?
Yeah, great question. So when I was your age, I knew two things. I wanted to be in the Navy and I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So, and that was because I read a lot of books and I had two favorite books. One was Patriot Games by Tom Clancy, and Jack Ryan is the hero and he went to the Naval Academy. So that's what I wanted to do. And the other one was Atlas Shrugged, and the heroes of that stories are all entrepreneurs. And so I knew from a very young age that those are two things that I wanted to do. And I went and served in the Navy and flew F-18s. And that was an incredible career, but I knew I didn't want to make that my long-term career. I knew that I wanted to get out and start a business. And so I got out of the Navy in 2011. I moved back to my hometown, and the best way for anybody to start a business is to learn the kind of business that they want to start. So I got out and I went to work for a family friend of mine from growing up that was in the oil and gas industry. And I went and learned from him for 2 years before I started my own business. And that was a super valuable education, and definitely highly recommend to any teens or kids that want to start a business is go learn from someone that's actually done the business they want to start.
That is
amazing tip.
Amazing. So when a lot of people hear wealth, they just think someone who has like a lot of money. Yeah. So does wealth mean more to you, or is it just money?
Yeah, great question. And when I work with entrepreneurs and founders, the first thing I have them do is actually define what wealth is, because we can't talk about wealth effectively if we don't have a good definition of wealth. So usually people start with something that has to do with money, but quickly, as we go deeper into the definition, we usually land on freedom, right? What wealth means to me is freedom in 4 areas. Freedom of health, because if we don't have our health, we have nothing. And you guys talk a lot about health on this show, right? And freedom of relationships, meaning doing things I love with the people that I love. Freedom of time, meaning I want to have agency. I want to have control over how I spend my time, right? Because the reality is so many people on this earth have to wake up and go to jobs that they don't like. And that bums me out, right? We really want to have control over how we get to spend our time. And then ultimately, freedom of mind. And freedom of mind means I am free to think the things I want to think, to express myself the way I want to express myself without fear of losing my job or losing my livelihood and jeopardizing my family. And money in that framework is a tool. It's a battery to buy true wealth, right? And so you guys have probably heard that money won't make you happy.
Yeah.
And that's only partially true, right? Because a lack of money can make for a pretty unhappy life. Mm-hmm. But money for money's sake isn't going to actually buy you those freedoms. So we have to use our money in service of creating what actually makes a wealthy life. And that's with that freedom that I was talking about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So why do some people grow up without learning about money, and how can kids change that about the future?
Yeah, this is such a great question. One of the main reasons is because we actually don't talk about money in our society. It's considered rude to talk about money, right? So whether that's parents talking to money about to their kids, or there's three things we're not supposed to discuss at the dinner table, right? Politics, religion, and money. And there's a quote that I love, which is, we use money we don't have to buy things we don't need to impress people we don't like, right? There's a lot of adults that spend a lot of money, and we don't tell anybody how much money we actually have because that's considered embarrassing. But the reality is that kids are way smarter than most adults give them credit for. And so I try to share with my kids a lot behind the scenes of what it means to have money, how to handle money, how to build a relationship with money, because we all have, just like we have a relationship with our friends, we have a relationship with money. And if we're afraid of money, it's going to be really hard to have a good relationship, right? It's hard to have a good relationship with something that you're afraid of. And so if we can have these conversations and talk real talk about how to make money, how to manage money, how to keep and grow money, then we will have the opportunity to learn, because you can't learn about something that you don't talk about.
Yeah. So
what's something you've unlearned about money, success, or being a man? And how did unlearning that help you grow?
I love the word unlearn, because that really is such an important part of everyone's journey, right? As we grow up, we learn stuff, both good and bad, but then we have to unlearn some of those things. And I think that in the context of money, we are told by society that the measure of our success, or the measure of our worth as a human, is how much money we have, right? We look at Instagram, we see people driving fast cars, we see people going on luxurious vacations and hanging out on yachts, and we think, oh man, that's the life that I want to live. And if I can just get that stuff, that's going to make me really happy. And I've owned a lot of cool stuff. I've owned a lot of cool cars. And money can be used to buy experiences, and that can make your life better. But what really makes us happy are the quality of our relationships, experiences with the people that we love, and being present with our family and our friends. And being present doesn't cost anything at all, right? And so I think that the thing that I really had to unlearn was that my worth as a human has nothing to do with how much money I have. And having money is useful, right? Like I've been both rich and I've been poor. I would rather be rich because it makes life easier, but it doesn't mean that I'm a better human or have a better life if I don't use that money to create that life. And so that's the thing I think I wish everyone could maybe unlearn, is that having money doesn't make you a better person. It's not going to make you feel whole or worthy or make you feel any kind of way unless you use it a few ways. One, to help yourself and your family enjoy your life with experiences. And two, in service of helping other people, because that's really the point, right? That's what so many of us, when we really talk about happiness, it comes from helping other people.
Mm-hmm. How can kids start building wealth, even if they can't get a job yet?
Yeah, great question. So, every kid can be an entrepreneur, right? And it doesn't mean you have to go have a bank account and start a business. You can actually just put a lemonade stand up on the corner, right? Make lemonade and sell it, and then take that money. And here's how kids can start building wealth, is understanding how money works. So when you start a lemonade stand or any other, or maybe it's a lawn mowing business or any other kind of business, right? There's costs, expenses, and then there's the money that you make, and the difference is the money you keep. So first understanding, okay, if I go buy lemonade supplies, if I go buy sugar and cups and all the things I need to run a lemonade stand. How much money do I make and how much money do I have left over? And that is your investable income. And then you can do a few things with that money. You can go buy more supplies and run more lemonade stands, right? And that helps your business grow, and that helps the amount of money you get grow. Or you can start learning how to invest that money, and you can learn about things like the stock market. So when I was your age, I would read books about the stock market and learn how to invest in companies that I like. And it can be just as easy as that. You can get your parents to help you if you go make some money. And there's two types of money that we have in our life. There's the money that we earn through our work. And then there's the money that we grow using investments. And investments, you typically don't have to work, right? The money is growing without having to do anything else. And so you take money that you earn from working and you put money in investments that grow without you having to work. And that is really how kids can learn about the fundamentals of building wealth.
Wow. So you talked a little bit about you teaching your kids a little bit about money. So for maybe like adults who also want to teach their kids, or like kids who when they grow up they also want to teach their kids, what do you recommend saying to the kids? Because I know money can be a really big topic.
Yeah. So a few things. One is I encourage adults to have honest conversations about money. And two, I encourage kids to ask their parents questions. So my daughter asked me a question recently, and she said, "Dad, are we rich?" And my answer was, "Well, what do you think?" And then she told me, she said, "I think that means you have a lot of money." And I said, "Yeah, that's one definition of rich, but what else might make us rich beyond just money?" And so we had the opportunity to have a really good conversation about what being rich really is. And we decided that being rich meant doing things you love with the people that you love. And that was her definition after we talked about it for a little bit. So for us, being rich means I get to take my daughter Parker and go to the park and spend the afternoon doing that, right? That's what being rich is to Parker. And so having conversations about what wealth or being rich actually is. And then another thing is understanding how to use money effectively. So, a lot of times kids grow up and they've never learned about how to use something like credit. And you guys know what credit means? It's when you borrow money that you don't have to buy stuff, right? So there are some people who say you should never borrow to buy stuff, but that's not really true. A lot of times rich people can effectively use credit to buy things that are assets. So my son wanted a video game. He wanted the new Call of Duty. I don't know if you guys like video games, but he didn't have enough money to buy it. And he really wanted it on the day that it came out. So I said, all right, well, why don't we structure a loan? I'll loan you the money to buy Call of Duty, and then you can work a certain amount every week and pay off that loan over time. And we structured a contract just like a bank might structure a contract. It said, okay, how much? It was $60. How much do you think you can pay every week? And at first he said $10. And I said, man, $10 seems like a lot. That's a lot of work to be able to get $10. And so we decided maybe instead it was $5. Okay, so now he has to work for 12 weeks at $5 a week in order to pay off that debt. And then, just like with a bank, we talked about what might happen if he doesn't pay the $5, right? That he would not have access to his video games anymore because the bank would come repossess the video games, right? So he signed on that he would borrow the money to get the video games, but if he couldn't pay, then the bank would take back the video games. And so that's how bank loans work and credit works in the real world. So I'm teaching my kid about how he can use credit effectively and how to make sure that he doesn't get in over his head and promise to pay something that's more than he can actually afford.
Wow. That is
Amazing.
Yeah.
so if a kid listening wants to become wealthy and generous when they grow up, what are the first 3 steps that they should take this year?
Cool. Number one, there is only one way to become wealthy or to have a lot of money. And that is you have to make more money than you spend. You can never have a lot of money if you spend more than you make. And that is the reality. Is that's what most adults do in our society. So number one is understand that you have to make more than you spend. Then number two is learn how to take that money that you're saving above what you spend and learn how to use that to grow more money. So you can either do that by growing your business or you can do that by making investments. And then the third is learning how to manage the present with the future. Now, here's what I mean by that is we all want lots of stuff, right? So what's something that you guys want right now? What's like something that you would love to have that you don't have?
I want to go somewhere.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, let's use the video game example again, right? Okay, you don't have. There's a video game that you guys really want that you don't have, and you don't have the money to buy it. So, understanding how much work it takes to buy stuff is really, really important, because a lot of times what happens to adults is they think I'll buy this thing and it'll be really easy to pay back the money. And they don't realize how much work actually goes into earning enough money to pay it back. So what I encourage as the third step is for kids to get an understanding of what it feels like to save up for something and then buy it versus buying it before you have the money, right? And that's a really good habit you can take with the rest of your life that will help you be really wealthy and have a lot of money in the long term.
That's good.
What's one mistake most adults make with money that you hope this generation avoids?
Yeah, this is, we've already talked about a few of them, right? Number one is spending money you don't have to buy stuff. Number two is not having a good understanding of how to manage money. And that's something that they don't teach very well in schools. So there's a great quote that I love, which is what gets measured gets managed. And so one habit that I think can really help kids is looking at how much money they have on a regular basis. And this is something a lot of adults don't do. They only think about money if all of a sudden they run out of money and now they're in a bad situation. But if you look at your money every single week or every 2 weeks or maybe once a month, you have an understanding of, okay, this is how much money I bring in every week or month. This is how much money I spend every month. And here's how I can manage that in the future. And now I can set a budget and I can know how much available I have to spend. So if you make $20 from your lemonade stand and you need to spend $5 making or getting new supplies to keep the lemonade stand going, you have $15 of what we call disposable income. Okay. And you can spend that on stuff. You can spend that on investments, but understanding how much is coming in and how much is going out is something that I think all kids can start doing that adults aren't really very good at a lot of times.
If you had to give your 14-year-old self just one piece of advice, what would it be?
Great question. I would give my 14-year-old self a lot of advice, but the number one thing I would say is enjoy the ride. What adults oftentimes do is they think, I'll just be happy when. I'll just be happy when I get to this finish line, right? I'll be happy when I graduate college. I'll be happy when I get my first job. I'll be happy when I sell my first company, or whatever it is. And what I would say that I wish I could go back and tell my 14-year-old self is you can be happy right now before you get the outcome, before you reach whatever milestone that you've set as a goal. And look, it's really important to set goals and work toward those goals, but don't put off being happy and living your life and doing the things you want to do just to reach some goal, because a goal is never going to make you happy, right? You can only be happy in the present moment. And so my biggest advice for my 14-year-old self is enjoy the ride, enjoy the present moment. And even if you are still working toward a goal, don't forget to spend time with the people that you love, spend time doing the things you want to do, and really enjoy the process rather than waiting for the outcome.
This was such a powerful episode. So where can people learn more about you and your amazing work?
So I'm on social media. You can follow me on Instagram at mbrown.co, YouTube at the same. And then I write a long form newsletter about money and what makes a truly rich life every week. That's at unbreakablewealth.com/newsletter. I'd love to have everybody check it out.
Perfect. So everyone go check that out right now.
Cool.
So
Now
now-
time to recap Mr. Mike's key points.
They don't teach us a lot about money in school. That is why we need to follow Mr. Mike on social media platforms and join his newsletter.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. You guys asked really good questions.
Thanks. I mean, it really is our pleasure for having you on the podcast.
Yeah.
Cool.
Wealth is not just money. It is freedom, like freedom is of mind and wealth. Adults need to have honest conversations about money. Kids, ask your parents questions around money. There is only one way to become wealthy. You need to make more money than you spend.
Learn to take that money and learn to grow more money, either in business or investments. Learn to manage the present with the future. Use your money in service of creating a wealthy life, a life that you love.
That is a great recap. You guys nailed it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thank you everyone for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Zain Sari.
I'm Imad.
And I'm Qasim.
Follow my family line on social media, Holistic Mom D, and look out for our book releasing November 2025 called The Teen Health Revolution. You can pre-order on Amazon today. And kids need to learn from other kids. Please download our podcast on iTunes and leave a review so other kids and families can benefit. We need to create a healthy future for all of us and the planet. Join us next week for another episode of the Holistic Kid Show, where kids are empowering kids.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
everyone.
Thanks for having me, guys.